Shall we get started? Joseph, Yvonne. Welcome. My name is Michael Warren Thomas. I live in Rochester and have been a radio show host about food and wine in the Finger Lakes for the last 18 years. And we're honored to have you today. We really appreciate you coming to learn about the issue. This is something that means a lot to the Finger Lakes, and that's why so many businesses are behind me. Wineries, bed and breakfasts, other related businesses, winemakers. Also, Deborah Goldberg is here, attorney with Justrice, which has taken up this potential project in Watkins Glen, where about 4 years ago, Yvonne Taylor and Joseph Campbell attended a meeting in Ithaca where there was discussion about this potential gas storage, massive expansion in Watkins Glen in former salt caverns. And over these 4 years, they have formed Gas-Free Seneca and put together a tremendous coalition. And part of the handouts was a list of 59 wineries, including some from around the world, that have signed on against this massive expansion in Watkins Glen. And so we're here to send a message to Governor Cuomo that the DEC permits for this expansion are on their desk at the DEC. And it's Governor Cuomo who needs to step up and say no to this in the best interest of New York State, not just the Finger Lakes. So we have several speakers here today to give you more background on this potential project and what it might mean for the Finger Lakes and thereby for New York State. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Rob McKenzie. He's the former president and CEO of Cayuga Medical Center in Ithaca. He'll present data from an independent study on the risk to Schuyler County from Crestwood's LPG storage expansion proposal. Dr. McKenzie.
Thanks, Michael. I'm Rob. I live between Cayuga and Seneca Lakes and recently retired as CEO at Cayuga Medical Center, where we took a special interest in community health risks, community risk management, and hospital safety. We were honored in 2010, after much hard work, to be ranked by Consumer Reports the safest hospital in New York State. I speak now, though, as a private citizen. Using public online petrochemical data, we found that the risk of an extremely serious propane rail event in rural Schuyler County, like the Oneida, New York derailment that closed the thruway and caused evacuations of 4,000 people, is about 3% over 25 years. We found that on Schuyler's 2-lane hilly roads, the tanker truck explosion risk is between 8 and 10%, somewhat higher. But the risk of an extremely serious salt cavern disaster, such as fire with explosion, deaths and injuries, evacuation, or major or catastrophic property loss, is 35% over 25 years. And the riskiest caverns are older ones with geology like Schuyler's. The company's own risk report merely looked at risks from equipment failure and chose to ignore the risks of propane transportation by rail and road, chose to ignore the risks of brine spills, and the 18 serious or catastrophic events that have occurred in other salt caverns since 1972. Salt brine spills are generally thought to be worse than oil spills. The salt can soak into the ground better. Crestwood has already had 2 salt brine spills in Schuyler County, and 4 weeks ago had a 1 million gallon spill in North Dakota. That's the size of the spill that in 2006 occurred and has since been called North Dakota's worst environmental disaster ever. A large salt brine spill in Seneca Lake could destroy the drinking water for between 70 and 100,000 people, 30 wineries, many of them behind me, and millions of tourists. In all, we found that the 25-year risk to Schuyler County of an event of serious or extremely serious consequences is greater than 40%. The only proven way to significantly reduce that risk is to not store volatile fuels in Schuyler County salt caverns. Based on this analysis, I respectfully submit that the only safe option for Schuyler County is for the Department of Environmental Conservation to deny Crestwood's application to store liquid propane gas there. I have my report here in the room. You're welcome to review it. It's on the back table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Our next speaker, Doug Hazlitt. He's co-owner of Hazlitt 1852 Vineyards on Seneca Lake, along with his sister, Lee Triner.
Thanks. Good afternoon. My family has been farming land on the shores of Seneca Lake for 7 generations. We now operate 2 wineries. One is in Hector, New York, which is about 7 miles from the proposed storage, gas storage, and one in Naples, New York, which is on the south end of Canandaigua Lake. We employ 70 people, and these are good jobs. 5 of these positions earn well over $100,000 a year, and 5 to 8 of those positions earn between $50,000 and $80,000 a year. The rest of our full-time employees earn a very decent living wage. We thank Governor Cuomo for helping to promote the Finger Lakes wine and tourism. It has helped us achieve this success. It's time for the governor to answer us. What is his vision for the heart of New York? We believe it's the same as ours, to see it as a world-class tourist destination. As Dr. McKenzie just pointed out, the risk of an accident should these projects get approved is not an acceptable risk, and it threatens my family's livelihood and the jobs that we create. Even if there was 1 in a million chance of an accident, the risk would be way too high. It would only take 1 accident to turn visitors away from our region, causing what could be an unrecoverable blow to the sustainable jobs in the Finger Lakes. Governor Cuomo has done an excellent job helping us to create a vibrant agritourism industry in the heart of New York. Now he needs to help us protect it. Will he jeopardize what we have all built, all for the promise of 8 to 10 gas industry jobs? We cannot simply pull up our vines and move elsewhere. It has taken generations to produce the quality of wine that is coming out of the Finger Lakes region. And we've decided that we've turned into the Napa Valley of the East. We demand that Governor Cuomo do the right thing and deny all these permits for gas storage on the west side of Seneca Lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. It is ironic there's a poster of Watkins Glen here in this room. I assume it's been here a while. It's an awfully pretty, beautiful view. Our next speaker, Tina Hazlitt, the background in bank management. Tina is the financial manager of her husband, Eric Hazlitt's 6th-generation family farm, Sawmill Creek Vineyards.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to echo Cousin Doug a bit as another member of a family farm that began in Schuyler County in 1852, as well as being the secretary of the board of the New York Wine Industry Association. We applaud and would like to thank Governor Cuomo for all he has done to support and promote our wine and grape industry. Twice he has hosted the Wine, Beer, Spirits, and Cider Summit and listened intently about our needs and concerns. He not only listened, he sprang into action. From streamlining the regulatory process to creating the Taste New York stores, the governor has currently committed a total of $6 million through targeted advertising and tourism marketing and promotion. The governor's investment is well-founded. In the recently updated What's in a Bottle of Wine by the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, the number is a staggering $4.8 billion into our state's economy. Our industry employs over 25,000 people, supports over 1,600 family-owned vineyards, and are now over 120 wineries in the Finger Lakes region alone. We plead to the governor to not allow the Texas-based company Crestwood to jeopardize our agriculture and tourism-based economy in the beautiful, clean, and pristine Finger Lakes region of the great state of New York. The 7th generation on our branch of the family tree, Jason Hazlitt, along with Justin Boyette, further invested in the Finger Lakes in Schuyler County by opening the Hector Wine Company 4 years ago. And on behalf of our grandchildren, the 8th generation of our family farm, please protect their way of life, their clean water, and their future in the Finger Lakes. As Doug said, we cannot pick up our vines and move to another state. Please do not trade their future in exchange for gas industrialization. You cannot ever get back what will be lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Our next speaker is Ouweleen. He's a concerned citizen, but also the proprietor of Oneida and Eagle Crest Vineyards, historic winery located just south of Rochester on Hemlock Lake.
Thank you, Michael. I am William Ouweleen from Oneida Vineyard and Eagle Crest Vineyards on Hemlock Lake in the western Finger Lakes. Our winery was founded in 1872. This is our 142nd year of operation as a Finger Lakes winery. I'm here today to express our grave concern and strong objection to Crestwood Midstream's plan to store LPG and natural gas in the abandoned salt caverns on the shores of Seneca Lake. This industrial gas storage facility in the heart of New York and in the heart of the Finger Lakes wine country is a very bad idea. It threatens the proven economic engine of the Finger Lakes region, namely agritourism. Millions of people vacation in the Finger Lakes wine country each year. They come from neighboring states to escape the truck traffic, the noise, the air and light pollution of their state's gas and oil industry. They retreat to the picturesque shores of Finger Lakes where we welcome them as family, as good neighbors do. But Crestwood Midstream is not family. Crestwood Midstream is not a good neighbor. Crestwood Midstream is not even a New York State company. They have lobbied to have their property taxes decreased significantly. They will not pay New York State sales tax on gas stored or sold in their caverns. And they have a track record of ignoring New York State laws and regulations since moving to New York State. In fact, for 12 consecutive quarters, Crestwood violated the Clean Water Act by exceeding their allowed limits on brine discharge into Seneca Lake. That is not good stewardship of our lake. Crestwood also had 2 pipeline failures with uncontrolled releases of brine. It did not report one brine spill to the DEC until after eyewitnesses sent them video of dead and dying vegetation. If this company cannot be trusted with their brine discharges and accidents, how can they be trusted to store gases underneath Seneca Lake? One accident or explosion would destroy over 150 years of careful brand building in the Finger Lakes. The Finger Lakes is wine country. It's not gas country. The two are not compatible ideas. So Governor Cuomo, we beg you, please do the right thing. Show the people of New York that this is still a representative government, not for sale to the highest Texas bidder. Deny the Crestwood permit applications for gas storage anywhere in the Finger Lakes now. And show the people of New York State who you really work for. We, the people of New York, will thank you. You will be our hero. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. As I said earlier, my name is Michael Warren Thomas, and I've hosted weekly radio shows about food and wine in the Finger Lakes for 18 years. I also co-founded New York Wine Spotting, an effort to get more New York wines in New York State restaurants. I think right now Albany has an average of about 3% New York wines by the glass. So there's some ways to go. But I want to say we are at a critical juncture where the future of the Finger Lakes wine region will be determined by the permits on the desk of the DEC. If Crestwood Energy is allowed to proceed with turning Watkins Glen into the gas hub of the Northeast, the thriving wine and tourism industry will be damaged, even if there are no accidents. But there will be accidents due to human error and equipment failure. Even if the salt caverns of Watkins Glen were geologically stable, and they're not, even if the roads around the gas terminal were flat and it never snowed, in fact, the steep roads plunge into the village, and the snow falls November through April. These massive expansion plans should not be approved. But the game changer for me in this is the investment by some of the most famous winemakers in the world on the shores of Seneca Lake. Decades of work by existing wineries have produced world-class wines that have attracted not just tourists, but the best of the best winemakers from California, Argentina, France, and Germany. Named the genius of Gigondas by the Wine Spectator, Louis Barol has created Ford Cellars, along with Justin Boyette and Hector Wine Company. His Chateau St. Côme winery had the #2 wine on Wine Spectator's Top 100 in 2012. Paul Hobbs and Johannes Selbach have also begun planting a vineyard just above Watkins Glen. Forbes magazine referred to Paul as the Steve Jobs of wine. He just received the first 100-point score ever for a wine from South America. Johannes Selbach's family has been making Riesling in the Mosel region of Germany since 1660. These are the folks making wine in the Finger Lakes now. There are no tax incentives that drew these winemakers here. No comida, just the belief that Schuyler County and Watkins Glen in particular has the soils, the microclimate, and the topography to make the best Riesling in the world. It's up to Governor Cuomo to decide what is best for the Finger Lakes region. 8 to 10 jobs for gas storage, or thousands of jobs now that wine investors from around the world have discovered the Finger Lakes. The world is investing in the Finger Lakes. Now I'd like to introduce Lou Damiani, co-owner of Damiani Wine Cellars. Lou?
Hello. Just a couple more of us, but I think you're getting the point, hopefully.
Next to last.
I am Lou Damiani, co-owner of Damiani Wine Cellars on the east side of Seneca Lake. I have a long and varied background in many fields: engineering, winemaking, and farming. Early on, I worked in the salt plant in Watkins Glen and have also worked in the gas and oil industry. Our winery has recently been given scores of 90 on our red wines. Finger Lakes wines are here now. They are world class, and Seneca Lake is the epicenter. What I want to talk about is the supposed propane gas storage. As we see our exports, and I think we have the right flip chart up there, as we see our exports of propane increase dramatically by 75% in 2013 alone to over 400,000 barrels of propane per year. That doesn't sound to me like a gas shortage. That sounds like a surplus that we can send to other countries to help their manufacturing sector so we can further export our manufacturing jobs. That's what's happening. There is no need for more local storage, and you could see 2013 how the exports have just dramatically increased. There is no need for more local storage of propane. We have over 3.5 million barrels of propane in the ground within a 60-mile radius of Watkins Glen. 1.5 million barrels right across the road from this facility at Enterprise Products, 1.5 million barrels at the Crestwood-owned Savona facility less than 30 miles away, and more than 600,000 barrels in Hartford Mills, New York, just north of Binghamton. The Finger Lakes should not be the sacrifice zone to profit the gas and oil industry, all for the promise of a handful of jobs. As I have said in my opening, I have worked in the salt industry and the gas industry. There are few things more corrosive than salt, and there are few things more explosive than gas. The two of them are an accident waiting to happen. Do not mix them. We plead with Governor Cuomo: be the people's champion, not the governor who bows to pressure from an out-of-state gas and oil company. You can do what's best for a bunch of gas and oil Texans who have thoroughly polluted their state and now have their sights set on our beautiful state, or you can tell them to go elsewhere. Be the people's governor and help save one of the most beautiful areas in the world from industrialization, the Finger Lakes region of New York State. Governor Cuomo, give us a reason to help you win big in November.
Thank you, Lou. In the back of the room are some copies of this Finger Lakes Wine Gazette, and on the back of it shows a map of the Finger Lakes and where the wineries are. And you can see how they're clustered at the southern end of Seneca Lake. It's a very distinct map that it's just ironic that that's where gas storage is proposed. Our final speaker is Steve Churchill. He's a lifelong resident of the Finger Lakes and Seneca County legislator and is chairman of the Environmental Affairs Committee. He'll talk to us about the growing regional support to stop Crestwood and their threat to our lakes and region. Steve?
Thank you. My name is Steve Churchill, and I join the chorus of folks here today, these folks, and a multitude of folks back in the Finger Lakes region. And we are all here in hopes that Albany will listen. Our message is simple, clear, and one that must be heard. No gas storage on the shores of Seneca Lake. Pretty plain and simple. As a legislator of Seneca County, I joined my board in an appeal to the state to protect our region, our way of life, and water that gives us all life. However, Seneca County does not stand alone in this fight. Now, for those folks that don't know, Seneca County borders the northeast section of Seneca Lake, and Seneca Lake falls in, half of it falls into within the boundaries of Seneca County. The list of regional governments that are working to protect the Finger Lakes and agritourism in our economy and the economy that we have all worked so hard to nurture is growing. To date, there are nearly a dozen municipalities, entities in the heart of the Finger Lakes region that have come out in opposition to the construction of the LPG gas storage hub on the shores and under the grand old lady of the Finger Lakes, Seneca Lake. Resolutions calling on the DEC and Governor Cuomo to reject this proposal have been passed by the counties of Seneca, Ontario, the towns of Fayette, Waterloo, Romulus, Geneva, and Ulysses, as well as the village of Waterloo and the city of Geneva. In addition, resolutions are currently being considered in the towns of Lodi and the village of Watkins Glen itself. In every case, these resolutions have been passed unanimously. Why? Because for us who live in the Finger Lakes, it's an easy and obvious choice. In fact, there is no choice. You simply just don't mess with our lakes, our water, and our way of life. Governor Cuomo, Commissioner Martens, please listen to our appeals today and say no to Crestwood and any others that threaten our home and beautiful state of New York. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve, and thank you to all of you for coming to cover this issue. We'll take your questions if you have some now, and obviously we'll be here afterward for answering questions too.
Michael, I'm curious what kind of contact you've had with the DEC, with the Cuomo administration over the last, the few years that you've been waging this battle. I mean, have you gotten any sort of indication which way they're leaning, or have you had meetings with the governor's staff, et cetera, et cetera?
We've been working largely through the press, have not been able to really get the governor's ear on this issue, and working through the communities that surround the lake to get their opinion out there by putting out these resolutions. Again, almost all of them unanimously against it. The DEC does not, they're interested in the environmental side of things, and we are too, but it's also a jobs issue. Steve?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on that briefly. We did meet last September in Manhattan with Howard Glazer's office. He's the Director of Operations for the Cuomo administration, and Commissioner Martens was in attendance in that meeting as well. So we did have a discussion with those folks. What was the result? It was a constructive meeting. It was a couple hours long. It was a good give and take. You never know. I mean, they haven't come out against it. We only hope that what we said makes a difference, but they haven't come out for it either. They approved it. So perhaps what we said has stalled things a bit.
Can you give us a sense of what they said to you? Because they're not going to tell us.
Well, at the end of the day, they both had different interests. Glazer was interested in the political aspect of it, and Martens was interested in the environmental aspect of it. And they had Mr. Tiernan, was his name? Ed McTiernan. Counsel for the DEC was there as well, and he was the devil's advocate. I mean, we were questioned quite a bit about if not here, where, those types of questions. I suggested they store it in Manhattan in abandoned subway tunnels. I tried to explain to him that the Finger Lakes is our Manhattan, and it's just as important and just as valuable to the state as Manhattan. It's also the place that people go to get away from places like Manhattan. Mm-hmm. So. The result, I don't know. We only hope that there is a good result from that meeting.
Now, sometimes the administration only responds when there's a lawsuit. What legal alternatives, what legal ramifications, or what do you have to deal with?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm Deborah Goldberg. I'm an attorney with Earth Justice. We're a not-for-profit organization, and we're representing Gas-Free Seneca. The principal claims that we would have would be under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. There is a supplemental environmental impact statement that is being prepared for the LPG facility. We've looked at the draft. We've looked at a draft of the final that was produced as a result of a Freedom of Information request. They are sorely deficient. We've pointed out many of the deficiencies. We have not really received any response to our comments on that. But I think that unless we see a really radically different document when it ultimately is completed, there will be good grounds for legal action at that time.
What would be the legal recourse?
We would file an Article 78 proceeding, which is a special proceeding challenging DEC's decision to issue the permits.
And that would put a halt to it?
Well, we would have to go in for a preliminary injunction, a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction in order to stop the activity pending the lawsuit. But the idea would be that it would at the very least, if we win, force them to go back and do a proper environmental analysis. The State Environmental Quality Review Act does require that the state find that it minimizes the environmental impacts to the extent feasible. So if they have not done that, that's grounds for overturning the decision.
Can you give us a little bit of the nuts and bolts of where things are right now? Are we waiting for a final supplemental EIS? Is that essentially where things are?
Yes. So there was a draft released as long ago as 2011 and comments on it. There was a internal draft of the final environmental impact statement prepared in 2012. And it has, as far as we know, there has been no official progress since then. There's nothing public at this point. We have sent in Freedom of Information requests. We have not received another draft of the final environmental impact statement. We have not received any responses to the letters we've sent in identifying issues that were not addressed in the original draft. So it's something of a black hole right now. It's not a transparent process.
Sounds not dissimilar to the fracking review.
Ring some bells, yes.
Do you have any indication that anything is actually occurring on behalf of the state, or is this just another political decision that the governor is delaying until after a certain election? What's happening soon?
Probably there's somebody better to comment on that particular question than me.
Anyone like to comment on that?
I have a question. There's been propane and natural gas storage in these caverns for many, many years, and that the huge salt mine has been there for 100 years. So I explained why this project is different from what's been going on there for so long already.
There's underground gas storage, natural gas storage, but the liquid petroleum gas has not been in those caverns for quite some time now. In the interim, the world has changed quite a bit. And the folks that you're seeing here and the industry that has developed here and the world-class wines that are being developed were not there back when there was LPG storage. So I think that we're considering something that might look similar, but it's in a very different context. And it needs to be analyzed fully, both from the environmental perspective and from the economic perspective. Even under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the state must take into consideration socioeconomic considerations, and the socioeconomic considerations are overwhelming, and the environmental considerations are extremely serious as well. For example, they did absolutely no air quality analysis. Now, this is for when they're planning to have a truck facility that they're going to have. They're going to have not only the underground storage, but there will also be some above-ground storage. There will be brine ponds, which will be volatilizing some of the product that comes out, and yet they've done no analysis whatsoever of air impacts. They did not do a no-action alternative, which is required under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. They have not analyzed in any significant way the wide range of safety considerations that Dr. McKenzie talked about earlier on. So there are a lot of considerations and information that we now have that we did not have back when the LPG was in this facility. And by the way, it was emptied out of that facility because of concerns about roof collapse. So
this is when NYSEG moved out of there in 2010?
No, this is long before 2010.
This was TEPCO in 1984.
Right, yeah.
Moved out.
Yeah.
That was the last time propane was stored there. and they moved out in '84 to great expense and dug and lined their own storage facility. And it was shortly, in the mid to late 70s, early 80s is when the salinity of the lake reached its highest. And understand that Seneca Lake, out of all the Finger Lakes, is by far the highest salinity of any of the Finger Lakes. This is of concern for all of us. There's not a direct cause and effect that can be pointed to, but coincidentally, you can't ignore it.
Several years ago, Long Island Sound was a place that LPG pipeline or pumping facility was going to be, and the environmentalists got that shelved. Can you draw anything from that decision that could help your cause?
Honestly, I mean, we were not, or Justice didn't even have an office in the Northeast at that time, so I'm not that familiar with precisely what they were doing. This is, the pipeline is a sort of a transportation issue as opposed to a storage issue. There may be slightly different entities that are actually have jurisdiction over the facility. So my guess would be it's actually the transportation is federally regulated. This LPG facility is in the hands of Governor Cuomo. He can say no. There are certainly good grounds to say no, and he will have the final word.
I'd just like to mention Deborah Goldberg is with Earth Justice, and they get requests from all over the country to represent different issues, and we're honored that Earth Justice chose to provide her and their assistance with this. And they get lots of requests, and they look for where they can have the most impact, I think.
Right. We look for where we're going to have the impact, but we also recognize that the Finger Lakes region is the iconic area within New York State. We have an office in Bozeman. It works on Yellowstone. We have an office in Denver. It works on the Grand Canyon. The Finger Lakes region serves those same roles for the people in the Northeast. We don't have a lot of federal lands, but we have beautiful lakes and an amazing growing agribusiness tourism business, and it would be a huge shame to lose that to the gas industry. We are located in New York City now. We opened up in 2008.
There's actually like two projects. The expansion of the natural gas storage and the LPG. So can you explain like where both of those stand? Are they both still awaiting DEC approval? And are you talking about strictly the propane one, or are you talking about both of them?
So there are two facilities. One is natural gas that is regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, but DEC does have to issue an underground storage permit for that. Then there's the LPG facility, which is wholly within state jurisdiction, and there's also an underground storage permit that needs to be issued for that. We would like Governor Cuomo to say no to both of them, but he has control over the LPG facility, and so he most certainly, if nothing else, should be, telling Crestwood that this is an inappropriate place for the LPG facility. One of the big differences between these two facilities and why it's so important that the LPG facility not be constructed here is that there's far more surface impact with the LPG facility. So what we're going to see is, we're going to see the rail spur, we're going to see the truck yard, we're going to see the brine ponds, everything. There's going to be a lot of surface development. And as you industrialize up that shore, the views from all of these wineries are going to be marred by these industrial facilities. So it's LPG facility at this point that's going to have the most impact, and potentially, obviously, there's also the safety impacts from the caverns themselves.
Right. I have another question. Deborah, you may want to step away from this because it's a political question.
Thank you.
You might want to come up.
I see the politics.
I'm just a little politics.
Yeah, but you're elected, so.
There was nobody ran against me.
From what I know about the Finger Lakes region, Seneca County and Schuyler County, you're probably all or most Republicans.
I'm a Democrat.
Yeah, it's fine.
None
but
of you vote. One of you.
Proud of smattering of Democrats out there.
Yes.
Have you approached Rob Astorino so that maybe you can make this more of a campaign issue and I know that you mentioned here, that you would support, in a Rye way, you asked if you would, support the governor or help him get a big win in November. But what about having Rob Astorino take this on as a cause? And why are you favoring just the incumbent?
He's for.
I'm a registered Republican.
You want
and
to
I've
step to the mic?
Yeah, let him. Thank you.
Contrary to much belief, we're not all Republicans in the Finger Lakes, but I have contacted Rob Astorino. He is pro-fracking in his platform. And so as one Republican to another, I've requested a meeting with him to inform him about my objections to fracking New York State and also to gas storage in any of the Finger Lakes. Also to educate him about the economic engine that the Finger Lakes' wine industry has proven for upstate. I'm originally from Rochester, New York, which is the home of Eastman Kodak, formerly, sort of. And and our lieutenant governor, and also Xerox and Bausch and Lomb, and what was once a thriving industrial enterprise, Rochester, New York, one of the highest educational centers outside of Cambridge, Massachusetts in the country, today is struggling significantly because of the loss of those companies. And in the vacuum, it's been more than one governor that's been attempting to figure out what is the economic engine for the Finger Lakes. To Governor Cuomo's credit, he's recognized the momentum, and he has put wind in our sails, and he has significantly simplified the regulatory processes regarding the wine and craft spirits industry, and we're all grateful for that. And just as we begin to get traction and have outside investment from around the world, this project and others like it threaten the very life of the Finger Lakes and also the momentum that we are beginning to enjoy. And
well, certainly Astorino's running mate is from Elmira, Chemung County. He's
right.
sensitive to this.
Right.
I mean, do you feel the Astorino campaign is ignoring?
No, I think they're underfunded, and given the Moreland Commission New York Times report that came out after a 3-month study, I think they are see that as the greatest political topic at hand. And time is fleeting, so I think they're working on that. I'm compelled just to point out in the room as we walked in, this sign was greeting us, just through the grace of the great Creator. This was what
was on the back of that?
This was the sign as we came in, but I flipped it around and it happens to be this. And then I just want to point out there's 3 pictures on the walls. There could be any 3 pictures. 2 of them happen to be of the Finger Lakes, so Letchworth in my county, in Livingston County, Letchworth, the Gorge, and Watkins Glen. And then I'm staring at this black and white photo of what I believe to be Niagara Falls, which is otherwise known as Love Canal. So we have one of the 7 greatest wonders in the world that was destroyed by over-industrialization and bad neighborly corporate practices. And we have 2 stunning examples of our state's natural beauty still untouched and unspoiled. And so it's our strong hope that Governor Cuomo recognizes that these assets are irreplaceable and not to be violated. And so we plead with him to come to our aid and continue to support our industry. And we promise to continue to create jobs and create a sustainable economic engine that all of New York State and the world can be proud of.
Thank you. And I hope Governor Cuomo will trumpet the fact that we have some of the best winemakers in the world in the Finger Lakes now. They could have gone to Michigan, they could have gone to North Carolina, Virginia, Texas Hill Country, but they decided to come here. And there weren't any incentives to bring them here. So the future is bright for the Finger Lakes if there is no gas storage. So thank you for coming. We'll stay after if you have more questions. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so some of us have to fly.
We got to roll.
Others will stay.